That's what it is. Israel is currently doing very similar things that South Africa did in its occupation. And that is for the Palestinians that are deemed lucky enough not to live in the Gaza Strip. Apartheid is a light term for what Israel is doing to the Palestinians as a whole. This is not a controversial statement. Even the Human Rights Watch admits this.
Apartheid. While many associate the word with South Africa, apartheid is a universal legal term that refers to severe discriminatory oppression. Apartheid is also
Honestly, the specifics of South Africa are really different from Israel. Yeah. The specifics being that South African whites needed, like absolutely relied on and needed an enslaved and captive black population for the majority of their labor and economic production, whereas in Israel, they don't need the Palestinians. They just want them to fucking be purged, which is why Israel is worse in many respects than apartheid South Africa. Not to compare like atrocities. It's like literally thinking like, what's better, genocide or enslavement? That's like the conversation that we're having. Which is why I say that like the lucky Palestinians are the ones that are under the apartheid element of the occupation. The 2 million Palestinians that live in Gaza are not even a part of the apartheid occupation. They're just being ethnically cleansed. Slowly but surely. Come on, man. Fuck. Wait, what? Gaza is an open air prison. An open air prison that's being bombed all the time. That's why I say, like, the situation for Palestinians is so bad that, like, Jim Crow South style discrimination would be a significant improvement on their livelihoods and their lives. I just want you to imagine, like, how bad the situation is. That, like, the solution towards a one-state solution is still going to be bloody and violent and horrible. There is going to be a reconstruction ass era where in the post-abolition, like in post-abolition America, like there was a reconstruction period and there were a lot of fucking troubles led by a lot of white supremacist movements that worked to separate black people from white people, right?
Still rocking the mid part.
That is going to happen. And that is a step towards progress. If I'm looking at this from a very realistic point of view, this is a horrible take. No, it is the realistic one. I'm sorry. Actually, they do need Palestinians. A single day labor strike caused 40 million in loss to Israel. That's Palestinians living in the borders of Israel. I'm talking about like overall the entirety of the Palestinian population. They don't need as much, and they would rather completely fucking kick them out.
crime against humanity. Its definition in the 1973 Apartheid Convention and the 1998 Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court is made up of three key elements: an intent to maintain the domination by one racial group over another, systematic oppression by one racial group over another, and one or more inhumane acts as part of that oppression. Persecution is a crime against humanity under the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. It is made up of two primary elements: a discriminatory intent leading to severe deprivation of fundamental rights of a racial, ethnic, or other group. On the basis of these definitions and its research, Human Rights Watch finds that Israeli authorities are committing the crimes against humanity of apartheid and persecution. Human Rights Watch finds that the elements of the crimes come together in the occupied Palestinian territory, pursuant to an Israeli government policy to maintain the domination by Jewish Israelis over Palestinians across Israel and the occupied territory. In the occupied territory...
Why isn't the U.S. called an apartheid state? Like, Jim Crow South was closer to an apartheid state, or was technically an apartheid state, than it is now. There is a specific classification for it. Systemic discrimination in the way that it exists is not always going to be apartheid. That's why I keep saying that that's why I keep saying the lucky Palestinians that live in the West Bank, which is occupied territory, live under an apartheid state. Whereas the people in Gaza literally exist in an open air prison that is slowly but surely being cleansed.
That intent has been coupled with systematic oppression and inhumane acts committed against Palestinians living there. The Israeli government is the main authority across Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory.
Don't say lucky, my guy. They are lucky in comparison to the Palestinians living in Gaza. That's what I'm saying. That's how bad the situation is for Palestinians as a whole. How do you not understand what I'm saying?
In these areas, Israeli officials have demonstrated a discriminatory intent to maintain domination over...
Hankey's still going to be out here saying Human Rights Watch is puppets of DC? I mean, every fucking NGO is, like... But they're correct on this
over
one.
Palestinians by ensuring control over land and demographics by Jewish Israelis. Take the Jerusalem municipality as an example. The Israeli authorities' goal is to maintain a sizable Jewish majority.
By the way, this isn't like a conspiracy. This is like, we're watching the Human Rights Watch. Like, we're not watching like some fucking hyper lefty person. This is like this is the Human Rights Watch talking about Israel's like deliberate policy of maintaining a specific number of Jewish people in the West Bank. Like, this is a stated goal. Just so, please do not mistake this. That's why I think it's like fucking preposterous when people try to say like apartheid and colonizer is a terrible term to use against Jews. Like, no, this is like, first of all, it's not Jews, it's Israel. And secondly, it's the Israeli government's deliberate policy.
By box.
That's blood libel. You're joking. You're joking, right? You're joking. I think you're joking. You converted to Hindi, just curious? Please tell me you're joking. Oh, come on. Oh, it was joke. Okay, good joke, dude.
Boxing in Palestinian areas while helping predominantly Jewish areas to flourish. Israeli authorities maintain a two-tier system which...
Yeah, like, how do you fucking describe this as anything but apartheid? When, like, Palestinians living on their own fucking land, which is, like, occupied territory, which is illegal, can't have freedom of movement. Like, their freedom is completely restricted.
Privileges Jewish Israelis over Palestinians. The means used...
They can't build anything in their own territory, dog. What is it, like 99... Mohammed Kurd was talking about how 99% of Palestinian development in the West Bank is denied by Jewish authorities, by people who have literally openly stated, we want East Jerusalem to look like West Jerusalem, and and that like the entire Israeli project is a settler project. Like, the guy who said that sits on the fucking board that denies 99% of like Palestinian developments in occupied West Bank.
Used by Israeli authorities in the occupied territory amount to the systematic oppression needed to establish the crime of apartheid. Israeli authorities have committed a range of abuses against Palestinians. In the occupied territory, those abuses include mass land confiscation, the denial of residency rights, and the suspension of civil rights, and rise to the threshold of inhumane acts and severe abuses of the fundamental rights of Palestinians. The international community should recognize the reality on the ground for what it is and press the Israeli authorities to end apartheid and persecution.
This thread about the Fauci settler guy in the video is wild. He's willing to use the word apartheid to describe vaccine passports and other COVID shutdowns. Wait, what? I activated my long dormant Facebook account to find if I could find the Sheikh Jarrah settler Jacob Fauci from Long Island, who seems drawn to any camera like a moth to a flame. From his public post, I found a party animal Kahanas Trump supporter and COVID truther. Here's some highlights. Oh, he's saying that vaccine passports are resembling apartheid. He quotes Mayor Kahane approvingly. Down with Hanukkah. Wait. Better a strong Israel hated by the world than an Auschwitz loved by it? Wait, isn't fucking that the Mayor Kahane, isn't that like a fucking crazy like Jewish supremacist or some shit?
Hassan, I accidentally screen shared.
Yeah, he was like an ultra nationalist psycho, right?
Don't worry though, you didn't get away with it.
Like he was like a terrorist. Not like a terrorist. He was he's the guy who fucking founded the Jewish Defense League, dude. The guy he's quoting is the founder of the Jewish Defense League. Remember the Toronto guy who had a fucking knife? The Jewish guy in Toronto who had a knife in his hands and got his ass beat by Palestinian demonstrators who everyone said was an anti-Semitic attack. Remember that situation? Regarding Gaza in 2014, Fauci writes, obviously I would prefer a nuke and pave approach, making Sderot beachfront property. That's pretty cool. Not really surprising that he's a major Trump supporter. He leads a holy life. Yeah, okay, good stuff. They are, by the way, considered a terrorist organization by the FBI. Apparently he bought a Nazi dagger? What the fuck? He likes going to the Haram al-Sharif Temple Mount with military escort. Oh, by the way, speaking of going to the Temple Mount with military escort or going to the Al-Aqsa Mosque with military escort, that is still happening right now, where like settlers that are armed literally fucking go now to the demonstrations happening at Al-Aqsa Mosque with the IDF, provoke the fucking demonstrators there, and then get the IDF to fucking, you know, I'm going to use a term that that have been used by the IDF in the past, mow the lawn. Which is, of course, exactly what it is. Cut the tall trees used by other similar organizations with similar ideologies. It's also been referred to as what the actions that the IDF takes in Gaza. It's mowing the lawn. A couple of years in, every couple of years, you go into Gaza, you fucking level it a little bit, you know, you push back the Palestinian population. Keep them in control. Minister says, from now on, we'll preemptively strike Hamas rocket activity. Likud's Hanegbi says, Israel will no longer wait for terror groups to fire before taking action. Netanyahu governments make mistake by allowing Gaza rulers to bolster capabilities. Their only provocation is being Jewish? Wait, what? You think the only provocation there is being Jewish? You think this is just like he's there to just be Jewish? Is that what you think it is? What the fuck? Do you think that I don't know, him literally living in a Palestinian home's living room because he decided to occupy it has something to do with the reason why Palestinians are mad, or what's up? Ceasefire meant they will cease the delay between firing more rockets. How much of the history / the situation do you think an individual needs to know to make criticism of this? Hearing you speak on it sounds like you know a lot, but I've heard you don't know enough to speak on it. I wonder who has said that I don't know a lot to speak on this situation. I wonder where that fucking take is coming from. I'm not gonna ban him. He's not being fucking annoying, but I wonder where they I'm saying other streamers have said you don't know, not me. I think you're good. What streamers have said I don't know? I wonder. I just want to know. I just want to know. I don't know. I'm sure they have great takes. Well, I want to know. I want to know who the many people are, but he's not responding for some reason. Or did he respond and I missed it?
People think of Israel and Palestine as two countries at war.
Hold on. Austin was talking shit? Yeah, probably. Probably with Saikuno, I think. Hold on. Let me just run through this real quick. This scan. I have to look to see if there's any blood, chat. Sorry. I have to pre-scan real quick to see if there's like any.
F/P.
There's a lot of old footage. So I worry a lot. Yeah, maybe I should have done my fucking homework, dude. I'm such a piece of shit. All right, I think it seems safe.
Think of Israel and Palestine as two countries at war, with this one, a state for Jewish people, occupying this one here, where Palestinians live. The truth is, both Israeli Jews and Palestinians live all over this territory, ruled by one government and one army, based on the idea of
advancing the supremacy and domination of one group of people, Jews.
And that is what guides its policies and its practices towards Palestinians.
In other words, apartheid.
I tuned in for aristocracy. What the fuck is that? But I tuned out as soon as they said Hasanabi. to see what they had to say in the situation. I heard them say that and I tuned out. I wish you would have listened. I want to know.
Apartheid is a loaded word tied to the racist South African regime of white minority rule. But although the word comes from there, apartheid isn't just a description of what happened in South Africa. It's actually a crime against humanity under international law. In 2021, Human Rights Watch accused Israel of carrying out apartheid. It based this accusation on the 1973 Apartheid Convention and the 1998 Rome Statute, which say that 3 elements have to occur for the crime of apartheid to apply. They are an intent by one group to dominate the other, systematic oppression by one racial group.
The situation is so fucked up. While all this is happening for decades, we are taught in Israel nothing of the sort. We are only taught about the wars Israel fought about and how brilliant the IDF is. Yeah.
Group over another, and one or more inhumane acts, like denying people the right to leave and to return to their country, expropriation of landed property, and the creation of separate reserves and ghettos.
Wait, wow, that's crazy. That sounds... Fuck. Oh, wow. That literally describes the everyday lives of Palestinians.
So let's see if any of these apply to Israel's rule over Palestinians.
Like anyone who says Israel's
3 months.
regime is not an apartheid regime against Palestinians is just fucking delusional, dude. Like, not only are you a fucking coward, you're a morally abhorrent coward if you do not openly fucking admit that what Israel is doing is straight up an apartheid. I'm sorry.
About half of the people.
Or uneducated? Yeah, there's a lot of people who are uneducated or rather blinded by propaganda. I personally did really want to know how important the history is before being able to criticize, though, not drama baiting. No, look, understanding the history of any sort of conflict is always important. It's always a good thing. It's kind of at the heart of what I do. I love to offer historical perspective whenever I'm talking about issues. So my anger is when people use how complicated. It's just complicated to just like try to avoid having a conversation about it. Okay? And that is unironically what people do whenever they say Hassan is not fucking educated enough to speak on these matters. They're literally saying it's too complicated. He's not well equipped to speak on these matters. And that's it. Like that's what that is. It's a way to fucking deflect.
People that live here under Israel's rule are Palestinian, and the other half are Jews, like myself.
For those 7 million Israeli Jews, almost the entire land is one space. Whether they're here, or here.
Except for the Ottoman Empire, according to chat. Dog. Ottoman Empire bad, okay? It's an empire, okay? It's an empire. Shut the fuck up. Also, Ottoman Empire, when we're talking about the Ottoman Empire, we're talking about the history, okay? We're talking about history. Something that happened in the past, not ongoing shit. When I talk about the Turkish government's ongoing actions against Kurdish people as a whole, or when I talk about the Turkish foreign policy, I don't fucking mince words. I still tell you that it's bad and wrong. Just like the Ottoman Empire's existence was still predicated upon so much bloodshed. That's so fucking stupid. Yeah, cancel the Ottoman Empire, dog. Do it. Do it.
They have the same rights, privileges, and legal status. They can move freely, vote in the same elections, and live under the same laws. The boundaries are invisible to them. But for the 7 million Palestinians, the boundaries are very visible. Whereas this is essentially one space for Israelis, Palestinians have been divided into 4 areas.
Ottoman Empire, absolutely worse. It was predicated on basically enslaving people as well. Why'd you put basically, dude? Of course they fucking enslave people. Like, of course.
Each area gets a different colored ID card issued by Israel, and your life and rights are determined by that ID card. In Gaza, Palestinians have no freedom of movement and are under a complete...
Aristocracy said that you are too uneducated to give a rational explanation of what's going on. Okay, I don't give a fuck. Also, I'm not gonna fucking go on like some random debate show, dude, okay? A lot of that stuff is just like literally pointing to be like, hey, I want you to like come on this debate show or some shit like that, and that's why they like want to engage in this sort of take. Let's be real. Also, I'm sure that if you like see the entirety of the quote, I'm sure that it was couched within like a lot of praise for what I do or some shit, but ultimately it doesn't matter. Don't shit on aristocracy. She's literally out there as a historian educating people on the Nakba. Okay, any fucking historian educating people on the Nakba is not gonna fucking turn around and be like, oh, your perspective is so uneducated. She rolled that back a lot. He wasn't characterizing that right. Like, I fucking doubt. She's not even a historian on this topic. She's wrong on so many things. Anyway. Dude, you gotta stop, dude. You've been posting this Google Doc for literally like the past week, dude. I'm not going to read this Google Doc on Sigma males. Okay, please stop. I see you. I'm not going to do it. So just fucking stop. No, I just timed him out.
Israeli blockade. Israel
You already debated her. Apparently, she has a video. When? Oh, is it like, I think it's the Discord
no
group,
longer
right?
has soldiers inside Gaza, but it controls every aspect of life from the outside. People in Gaza have no civil or political rights. They've got no say in the Israeli government that controls them.
Only times I've seen aristocracy was when she was defending the British monarchy and arguing that Israel isn't a colonialist nation. Wait, what?
Palestinians in the West Bank also have very limited freedom of movement, with their population divided into 165 disconnected cantons, cut off by Israeli military checkpoints, walls, settlements, and other infrastructure. They also have no civil or political rights in Israel. In East Jerusalem, Palestinians generally have more freedom to move, but Israel can take away their right to live in the city. They can't vote in Israeli elections, and Israel also bars them from taking part in Palestinian politics. Palestinians who are citizens of Israel can travel relatively freely, but they face restrictions on where they can live. They can vote in Israeli elections, but face legalized discrimination. Yara Hawari is a Palestinian with Israeli citizenship.
This ID system.
So this is the third, like, if we are to make distinctions between Palestinians, this is the third layer of discrimination, which is Palestinians living within Israeli borders. Okay, so these are Palestinians with Israeli citizenship, and even they are also discriminated against in one, from like literally going from the westernmost point of the Gaza Strip all the way to you travel further east all the way to the fucking, or I'm using my east and west. Yeah, no, westernmost point, further and further east, you will see three different kinds of Palestinian living. Okay? Starting with the most oppressed, which would be the Gaza Strip. Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip live on western point to eastern point. I said it right. Starting off with the westernmost point in the Gaza Strip, you have the Palestinians, the more than 2 million Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip that are the most oppressed because they're living inside of a fucking open air prison that's consistently being bombed. Then within the boundaries of Israel, you have Palestinians with Israeli citizenship who are, out of the three groups, the least oppressed, yet still significantly marginalized and significantly oppressed against. And then lastly, on the eastern side, you have the occupied West Bank territory, where Palestinians live on their own land that is currently occupied by Israel, and they live under an apartheid regime.
It penetrates, all areas of life, where you live, where you study, what you work, etc. Even the more intimate areas of life, such as who you marry.
That's because for the most part, a Palestinian can't pass on their ID status to their spouse.
And this has huge implications on where they can live.
Dude, that is such freak shit, dude.
Many indeed actually end up leaving and choosing to live abroad because it is that difficult.
On rare occasions, Palestinians are able to change their ID, but only in one direction.
So for instance, if a Palestinian from East Jerusalem,
If you are a person, if you're a Palestinian with dual citizenship, maybe you're a Palestinian American, for example, you do not have a right to return as well. Like, there are Palestinians with citizenship to other countries living in the West Bank, and if they leave the West Bank, Israel will revoke their fucking status Israel will revoke their status of, like, Palestinians, revoke their right to return, basically. And the only way as a Palestinian you can change your, like, citizenship status is by losing it. It goes in one direction only.
moves somewhere else inside the West Bank, they could lose their residency in East Jerusalem. And Israel, since it's considered that a downgrade, then that's a direction that would be feasible. And further down the line, again, from Israel's perspective, if West Bank...
It's not Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar is Somali. He's not Palestinian. You're thinking of Rashida Tlaib.
Bankers move
Thanks
to
for
the
the
Gaza
content,
Strip,
brother.
then that's a direction that Israel will accept, but not in the opposite direction.
So while Palestinians are granted different rights based on their IDs, nowhere do those rights match those of Israeli Jews. Looks like we can check off at least one of the elements required for apartheid to apply. When Israel was founded in 1948, 700,000 Palestinians had fled or been forced out. The result was that the new state had a Jewish majority. To maintain that majority, Israel has never allowed the refugees to return. The Palestinians who remained were given Israeli citizenship, although they were kept under strict military rule for 19 years. But in 1967, when Israel occupied more lands, including Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem, it faced a problem. It wanted the land, but didn't want the Palestinians on that land. So it's refused to extend citizenship to the rest of the Palestinians under its control, while keeping them under military rule ever since. To further control the ratio of Palestinians to Israeli Jews, Israel still bans Palestinian refugees and their descendants from moving into any of the territories it controls, while encouraging any Jewish person anywhere in the world to immigrate to Israel, even if they've never set foot there before. In Jerusalem, the Israeli authorities actually have a population target: 60% Jews to 40% Palestinians. Palestinians in Jerusalem are only granted a permanent residency permit, even if they've been living in the city since before Israel was founded.
About 350,000 Palestinians are in that status, and which is Orwellian, the way it's defined, because the only thing permanent in permanent residency is that it can actually always be taken away.
These permits can be revoked if a Palestinian moves out of the city, but Jewish Israelis living in Jerusalem never lose residency, even if they move to the other side of the world. This discrimination has been enshrined in Israeli law. The 2018 nation-state law says that Israel is the nation-state of the Jewish people, and that the right to national self-determination in the state of Israel is unique to the Jewish people. That means that even Palestinians with Israeli citizenship aren't considered equal to Jews with Israeli citizenship. As Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu put it, Israel is not a state of all its citizens, but rather the nation-state of the Jewish people, and only them. So let's go back to that list from before. The nation-state law is only one of many Israeli laws that explicitly discriminate against Palestinians. For example, there's the 1950 Absentees Property Law. Deeming Palestinian refugees absentees, Israel seized hundreds of thousands of acres of their land, even though they were only absent because Israel wouldn't let them return. Remember, denying people the right to return to their country is on the list of inhumane acts that legally make up the third element of apartheid. There are more Israeli policies that could fall under the category of inhumane acts, especially when it comes to land.
So Israel desires the land, even more so desires
Chad, shut the fuck up.
empty land or land that it makes empty, and doesn't desire the Palestinians living on that land. And that has resulted in policies in which land is constantly moving in one direction. Land that used to be Palestinian becomes state land, and then that land is allocated for the development of towns and communities for Jewish citizens.
And yes, expropriation of land is also an inhumane act. So let's see what that looks like on the ground. Across the entire territory, Palestinian communities are overcrowded and surrounded by Jewish-only communities.
It's the same type of practice of encircling Palestinian communities so that they can't expand, cutting them off from one another. It's a continuous practice that began in 1948 and was expanded to the West Bank in 1967.
The Israeli state prioritizes Jewish development in places where it wants to restrict the growth of Palestinian communities, with the government keen to Judaize areas like the Galilee and the Negev.
Israeli politicians frequently use that term to Judaize an area, in other words, to ensure Israeli Jewish dominance in a particular area, where the government has a concern over the Palestinian demography. And in any other context, this would be condemned as, gross ethnic engineering. It's in its basic laws, which is essentially the Israeli constitution. The land is deemed for the Jewish people, not the Israeli people, but the Jewish people.
In fact, only 3% of the land inside Israel's 1948 borders is allocated for its Palestinian citizens. Meanwhile, hundreds of new communities have been built for its Jewish citizens, many on the ruins of destroyed Palestinian villages. Plus, there's the 200 illegal Jewish settlements that have been built across the West Bank as well. At the same time, thousands of Palestinian homes have been demolished or are under threat of demolition, having been built without permits because Israel rejects most Palestinian building applications. Meanwhile, in the Negev desert, the Israeli government wants to maximize the land available for Jewish development. So it has tried to force Palestinian Bedouin citizens into small townships by demolishing their homes and not allowing them to connect to the water and power grids. One village, El Araqib, has been demolished more than 180 times.
Now, just across the Green Line, a similar struggle is taking place in the village of Susia, which is in the West Bank.
Do you understand why when people say like apartheid isn't a good word to use here, like they're fucking insane and delusional? It is the only word to use here, and it's the light term to describe what's going on. That's why I say it's like the luckier in comparison to the Palestinians living in Gaza Strip, like the luckier version. Aristocracy needs to learn her place. When did her head get so big? How does an uneducated VTuber think her voice is important? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know enough about this person but like regardless, it just fucking reeks of like weird. I can't tell if you're trying to bait drama by like. I feel like it just seems like you're trying to bait drama by spamming that shit over and over again. I don't know why he typed in the wrong chat. Fucking know your place rhetoric is really stupid.
Just south of Hebron, and it too has faced a series of mass demolitions by authorities in an attempt to establish Israeli Jewish control over the area.
Looks like we can check off another one of the criteria for apartheid. Israel has total control of this entire territory.
I permanently banned that guy who kept saying like, are you a Gulen supporter? Are you a Gulen supporter? Obviously, I'm not a fucking Fethullah Gulen supporter, you dumb motherfucker. Do I strike you as the type of person who either A, likes the CIA and therefore would like a CIA asset like Fethullah Gulen, or B, like a fundamentalist, like a fundamentalist Muslim, which Fethullah Gulen is? Like, literally fucking, you're so brain dead and you keep fucking spamming it over and over again.
Territory. Even in Gaza and the West Bank, which have some limited autonomous Palestinian administration in place, Israel controls the borders, trade, resources, water, electricity, the airspace, the electromagnetic spectrum,
So the electromagnetic spectrum is really fucked up. Like they control everything. They control the borders, trade, resources. She brought up, and when she says the electromagnetic spectrum, she means like Israel literally controls radio frequencies, Wi-Fi, telecommunications. Like I'm gonna expand on that. Like Israel controls all matter of telecommunications within Palestine, within like Palestinian territory, whether it be the Gaza Strip or whether it be in the West Bank. They can read your text messages. They can send you text messages, and they do often. They often do that. They control everything. Like sometimes they will stop you from uploading. So you can, for example, you can be on the internet and you can see other people's shit, but you can't fucking message one another or do like live streams because they've shut off uploading capabilities.
Borders, trade, resources, water, electricity, the airspace, the electromagnetic spectrum, the population.
Does that not mean Gaza Strip does not have the infrastructure to handle themselves, so Israel provides it? Israel prevents Gaza from and Palestinians from having the developmental capabilities for that.
Registry and more. Accusing a government of carrying out a crime against humanity like apartheid.
It's like saying, oh man, the Gaza Strip just like doesn't have any fucking neurosurgeons. I wonder why. Maybe because they keep bombing schools and they murdered the last remaining one in the Gaza Strip. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not that like, they're incapable of building this shit out. It's because they're occupied and Israel keeps murdering them.
Apartheid is no simple matter. But we've seen how Israel's control over and discrimination against Palestinians fits the legal threshold for apartheid. Israel's own leaders knew this was happening, although they didn't do much to stop it.
The state that you have at the moment is an apartheid state, isn't it?
It's not yet apartheid, but it might come on this slippery slope toward apartheid.
That's fucking Ehud Barak, by the way.
Pog.
Like Jeffrey Epstein's friend, Ehud Barak. Like former Israeli prime ministers, like, oh, it might become, it might go towards apartheid. It is. It has been. It was under his administration as well. But when you have a fucking former Israeli prime minister saying that shit, like, understand that, like, we are definitely there and have been there for a while.
Apartheid, but it might come on this slippery slope toward apartheid.
Still, how could apartheid apply to Israel when, say, Palestinian citizens can vote?
So, as a Palestinian citizen of Israel, I cannot question the fundamental constitution of Israel, which says that the state is for the Jewish people and the Jewish people alone. My citizenship doesn't allow for inclusion in that state, and so therefore participation in Israeli elections or in the Knesset is really nominal and has no potential to change policy.
Another argument against the accusation of apartheid is that the occupation is only temporary, and when it ends, Palestinians will rule themselves.
Normal people don't think that 54 years is temporary. We've passed that line already a very long time ago. And yeah, there's a lot of Israeli propaganda insisting on that worldview of democracy plus temporary occupation. No, it's not a democracy and it's not a temporary occupation. It's one regime between the river and the sea, and that regime is apartheid.
How do Palestinians resist without being labeled as terrorists? They don't. Every Palestinian that has resisted against the Israeli state has routinely been locked up with fake charges, including like literally fucking activists and journalists that are on camera while they're getting processed. I was listening to another interview. I forget what her name is. It was on Deconstructed with Ryan Grimm. And this person, wait, was it? Who did Ryan Grimm interview on Deconstructed? Mariam Barghouti, friend of the show, Ryan, interviewed Mariam Barghouti, who is a Palestinian-American journalist in Ramallah, in occupied West Bank, who talked about like Ramallah being the center of operations of the Palestinian Authority and all that sort of stuff. And at a like it used to be illegal to even fucking fly the Palestinian flag. That was considered illegal. And the Israeli authorities said that they apprehended her at a protest, declared the protest illegal. But because there were cameras on at the protest that she was at, they couldn't put all of these like false charges. They were literally openly in front of her talking about like they moved her illegally from her home in the West Bank to Israeli territory within the borders of Israel, which is illegal. You can't do that. You can't extradite someone like that. Then they made like these false charges up literally in front of her, straight up like, yeah, we're going to just say that you were throwing a stone. But because all of that was on video, those charges would not have stuck. And because it's like visible because she's a journalist, they just kept her under illegal detention for 10 fucking days. And you know, told her that she had to plead guilty, kind of similar to the Japanese criminal justice system. Of course, the Israeli system has Israeli criminal justice system has a 99.4% conviction rate. Everyone just happens to be illegal of doing acts against the Israeli state that are deemed terroristic. 99.4% conviction rate, boys. They're just too good. IDF labeled the 200 Palestinians that they killed terrorists. The IDF. Operation Guardian of the Walls. 200 plus terrorists neutralized. Yeah, like, 65 babies. Also terrorists. Very cool. Thank you for, thank you for, your sick Guardian of the Walls. I mean, this is disgusting, dude. These people are fucking disgusting. I guess that 10-year-old boy you showed being arrested is the 6%, 0.6%. No. That person is also probably a terrorist. Great. $13 people killed in Israel, 200 plus terrorists neutralized, dude. Fucking disgusting. This is Nazi rhetoric. It just is. Your enemies are not human, they're subhuman. And they're vermin. That's literally what the fucking Nazis did through and through. So I'm sorry if you get offended or if you consider it to be fucking anti-Semitic when I say like Israel's violent and bloodthirsty occupation is reminiscent of Nazi propaganda and also is literally Nazi shit. Then you're wrong. I don't know what else to say.
You try to do something like untangle the Israel-Palestine conflict. I mean, one of the things you just to start with is like, okay, how far back are you going to go? Well, I would say it depends on what argument you want to make. If you want to make argument A, you go back 100 years. If you want to make argument B, you go back 3,000 years. And then you could have an argument about which time scale you should use, but it's not like it's obvious. Is it 10 years?
I will die on a hill to defend that point. What?
Is it 1 year? Is it 6 months? It's not 3,000 years. Is it 2,999 years? Like, where are the borders of relevancy when you're laying out the landscape of the argument? God only knows. It's intractable.
Oh, wow. That's a very good take by Jordan. Jordan Peterson. So that's what I feel about. That's how I feel about like not or saying that the language that we're using when we say apartheid, when we say fucking Nazi, is too much.
His name is Hassan.
Thanks everybody who watches the Ask Project. It's really, really appreciated. I've noticed lately that the amount of views are low, contributions have gone down. It's the only way I'm able to do this project is from your contributions and sharing the videos. Please contribute. Go into the description below to see how. Guys, I appreciate so much that you guys watch these videos, like these videos, share these videos, and contribute. It's amazing. Thank you.
You didn't even finish the video, but okay, LMAO. Are you fucking dumb, dude? No.
Apartheid.
No.
Many people
You know,
think
he
of
tried to
Israel and
associate
like
the word-
untangle the Israel-Palestine conflict. I mean, one of the things you just to start with is like, okay, how far back are you going to go?
I was right here, right?
God only knows. It's intractable.
Where is he? Where is the guy? Where is he? 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 What was his name? You think his class was 42 seconds?
Hide him, chat kek white.
I mean, this is a literal deflection from like actually talking about it. Do you want to give me a full-blown Jordan Peterson fucking video on Israel Palestine? The original one, that's not it, LMAO. You have 5 minutes. Not 5 minutes. You have 1 minute to send me the full video. And if you do not send me the full video, I am going to ban you. And if the video is over 30 minutes long, and I'm going to scan through it, and Jordan Peterson... Are you fucking stupid? Dude, Jordan Peterson fans are so fucking delusional. They're so dumb, dude. Dude, 2017 Maps of Meaning Story and Meta Story Part 2. You better fucking send me... You better send me the fucking video right now.
Vital and supposedly interesting idea.
Oh, dude, you gotta watch like fucking... Oh, that's just this part 2, dude. You gotta watch this 2.5 hour... You gotta watch this 2.5 hour fucking lecture of him just fucking rambling on about maps of meaning or whatever the fuck. You need to listen to every possible second of Jay Peterson for full context.
I'd prefer to watch Nelson Mandela Nene on Israel, thanks.
As a Palestinian who lives in Israel, what do I wait for? Is there any solutions coming that the conflict's going to end? Is there anyone who's going to step up and help?
We having a baby.
I don't know. I'm not going to fucking 2x speed it. I need to know exactly the time codes where he's like where he's covering this issue. Okay? And if you don't have that, doesn't JBP have some pretty questionable shit he wrote in previous books? Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
If you find it very engaging, you also want to have that integrated within the broader society so that society isn't existing towards you as a continual obstacle and making...
This is so dumb. Can you find where he was sitting down like he was in the clip?
So, Other questions?
Listen
Yes.
to every JBP lecture ever or you are taking him out of context. OS Frog.
Look for radical success. Not all, I want 1%. There's lots of things that produce this. But one of the things that I've noticed is that mostly women in their 30s bail.
At Hasanabi, please don't say that Nazis had a ministry of Jewish extermination. They had death camps, they gassed and burned Jews, killed them in the streets. Israel is horrible, but they are not Nazis. Fucking stop saying that shit, man.
No, instead of Ministry of Jewish Extermination, they had death camps, they gassed and burned Jews, killed them in the streets. I absolutely fucking hate when dumbasses are like, it's not literally exactly the fucking same. Like, it is not, well, Israel does not call themselves Nazis, so how could you say that? When it's still fascism. Okay? It's still fascism. It's still ethnic cleansing. They are behaving and operating in a similar capacity to Nazis just because it did not fucking get to the point where they have like mass exterminations happening within camps, despite the fact that they do arrest thousands of fucking Palestinians on a regular basis for the crime of like whatever the fuck they've decided on that day. And the ideological spin that they put on it are reminiscent of literal Nazi propaganda. If that's not enough for you, I don't know what to tell you. $10012. I think you're lying. If you're lying, I'm gonna ban you.
Holy cow, 12
6
months.
months? Like, it's not 3,000 years. Is it
Hell yeah,
2,999 years? Like, where are the borders of
hell yeah? No,
relevancy
that guy's
when
great.
you're laying
Thank
out
you.
the landscape of the argument?
I'm sure JP
God
was
only
ahead of
knows.
the Zoas when he
It's
was in
intractable.
class.
And, you know, partly the way your temperament solves that problem, because it does, is say, well, a creature like you with your temperament preferentially attends to this set of facts. And that'll work, because attending to that sort of facts is likely to produce a reasonable outcome for you in most circumstances. And it's a way that you simplify the world and make a tremendous amount of it irrelevant. A priori filters. Okay, good. Now,
Where's the other guy? Where's the other guy? Where's the other guy? Who was the other guy who originally said you should watch the full context? Was this guy, right? Say you're sorry, or don't I know you are, so it's okay. I was simply pointing out how 42 seconds of him saying nothing is probably the intention of the clip itself. Buddy, go ahead and ban me. You know I'm barely ever here, buddy. I need you to admit, I mean, I'm going to ban you regardless, most likely, because you're such a fucking idiot. But don't you love that the full context in that lecture actually showed nothing? This is the mind of a fucking Peterson fan, dude. Still, in this circumstance, saying, say you're sorry. Motherfucker said, say you're sorry. What a fucking idiot, dude. What a fucking moron, dude. Say you're sorry or don't. I know you are, so it's okay. I am not sorry. The only thing I'm sorry is that I just didn't ban you and move on and actually spent like 10 to 12 minutes trying to fucking find additional context only to be proven right once again. I really wish he had something. Read my other